Hello, hello, hello. This is Adelaide Brown, your heart coach, and I want to welcome you to another episode of The Heartline with Adelaide Brown. Today's show is very special because, as you all know, we are really focused here on growing and cultivating heart equity, which we define as personal, relational, and financial wealth that we obtain through authentic living. So I feel like what better way to live authentically than to constantly work on our mental, emotional, and spiritual health, which leads to relational and financial health, right? This is what we know. This is how we grow in the Heart Tribe. So, with that being said, we have a returning guest here that may be new to some, familiar to others. I have my dear friend Samantha Aguiles, and I'm going to let Samantha introduce herself and we'll get into our conversation.
Yes, thank you, Addie. I'm Samantha Aguiles, and I'm a licensed professional counselor here in Charleston in the West Ashley area. I've been practicing for about 7 years now. I specialize mostly in trauma, but I see any and all folks who have any type of mental health or wellness issue that they're looking to navigate. So that's what I'm doing now.
Awesome, awesome sauce. So, as you all hear, she's a licensed professional counselor. So, that means that, this information today, of course, is for educational purposes, but she definitely is available for you if you want to move forward and obtain her services. I want to put this out there early because I really want to advocate for our community to make sure that we are working on being whole,
Hmm.
just maintaining our wholeness. Many of us often feel broken, and I've really, my thoughts on brokenness has have evolved over the years. But I can see how when you go through challenges in life, you can feel broken and fragmented. And one of those challenges that I think is very, I wouldn't say all encompassing, but it really does tap into many areas of our lives that we don't realize is the topic of grief. So I
Hmm.
wanted to bring Samantha on today because one, she's an awesome practitioner in her craft. Like, hands down, and you see that for yourself. But the other reason is because she's also not a stoic counselor. She is the type of counselor that will also use her life experiences and just situations she's gone through to help you navigate it. So many of you navigate life. So many of you know that I lost my mother. My mother transitioned in March of 2024. And that grief has been um, something I could not have prepared for. Even though her
Hmm.
death was sudden, um, I really believe that even if I had time to prepare, I can't say it wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
It just is a different kind of hurt. You know what I mean? It's kind of like surgery in different parts of your body, I feel like. Um, But yeah, how do you work with clients when they come in and they're grieving noticeably, or even more so, people who might not even realize that it's grief, but you
Hmm.
as a professional can identify that, right? I know that's a loaded question that can go all kind of ways, but we're having a
Hmm.
good conversation, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, the latter part of your question, I really like, around navigating grief when people don't even know that that is the thing that's happening. And at least what I've noticed, in my office when that takes place, someone is describing a situation at hand, and I label it as grief, and I'll say out loud, "That sounds like grief." And people almost always are very off put by that. They don't like
Okay.
they don't like that they're experiencing grief. That doesn't sound good to them. They want a different label for that. So
Really?
sometimes we'll backtrack, like, I'm happy to be wrong. I'm happy to
Yeah.
label it something else that feels more accurate. But
Uh-huh.
as we dig into it, it truly is grief. We're just so uncomfortable with it. We're so uncomfortable with grief, or we think it only applies to certain scenarios. We
Certain
think
scenarios.
we think grief only applies to death of a loved one.
Yeah,
But that's just one of so many types of grief. Grief is absolutely the death of a loved one. It can also be an unmet expectation. That's a funny one that gets a lot of people tripped up.
that is good because that is the truth.
Yeah, so lots of unmet expectations. My marriage isn't what I thought it would be. I love my spouse, I love my husband, but this is not what I envisioned our life or our partnership to be. That's a grief. That's a
That's a
loss.
grief.
It's
Yes.
something you
Oh.
thought you had or would have, but never
Mm-hmm.
came to fruition.
Oh.
And we have those types of losses all of the time. An
Mm-hmm.
unmet expectation around what age I thought I would get married, or how many kids I thought I would have, or
Mm-hmm.
how long I thought my parents would be here, right? There's
Yes.
so many just unmet expectations that can be under the grief umbrella, but to label that as grief just feels uncomfy.
Feels uncomfy. So, why do you think that is? Why do you think that people struggle so much with grief? Of course, I'm the heart coach. So, in
Mhm.
my mind, I'll go to certain things, but I love to hear from you. Why is it so hard to just embrace this is grief. I'm hurting. I'm
Mhm.
sad. Like
Mhm.
not so much I heard once that in this training I told you about, I did a grief training recently,
Mhm.
and one of the things that they said that I came across during really doing this extensive work with, mommy, because it hurt so bad.
Yeah.
They said it's easier to be guilty, to be shamed, than to
Mhm.
be sad and
Yes.
sit with the grief. And I was like,
Yes.
tell me about it.
Yes. Yes. I think some of that is really cultural. I think
Ooh.
in America, I think in Western parts of the world or Western societies, grief is supposed to be quick.
Hmm.
It is supposed to be linear. There's a start and there's a finish. And if you talk a lot about it, it's socially unacceptable.
Hmm.
And so I think there are a lot of cultural pieces around grief in America specifically that make it uncomfortable. If we look at other cultures or we travel to other countries or we have friends or family members who are part of different backgrounds, we see that grief is way more socially acceptable in other parts of the world and has a lot more space to take up. Um, there's even in the Jewish tradition, there's a practice called sitting Shiva. Are you
Hmm.
familiar with that? I think we've
I've
talked about
heard
that a
it.
little bit.
Yeah, I think, yeah, we
Mhm.
have. And that's why yeah, please touch on that.
So it's just a practice where for 7 days, the grieving person or the grieving family is literally not doing a thing. You're not going to work, you're not making meals, you're not cleaning your home, but the community around you, the loved ones, and the essentially the body of faith around you is doing those things for you and with you. They're bringing you meals, they're
Mm,
taking care of the kids, they're taking care of the home, they're coming to sit with you or grieve with you or check on you. They're taking care of those other things so that you just have the space and the time for 7 whole days
just
to
to
just
grieve.
be. Yeah.
Wow. I experienced that, a dynamic of that for sure. I feel like culturally in our culture, I don't know if, like people like to think of Black people as a monolith. And I've found that I think it's a Southern thing. I don't even know
Mm,
if the Gullah Geechee part of it has a lot to do with it, because I've
mhm.
found that different people, do grief differently, but I experienced that, right? I
Yeah.
experienced that in a big way. There were some things, of course, I had to take care of being her only child and her not
Mhm.
having a spouse. However, like I was just talking last night how my auntie was there for 10 days. She cleaned up
Yeah.
every day. She did,
Mhm.
if food wasn't there, she cooked something.
Yep.
All I had to do was really bathe,
Mhm.
and I needed that.
Yep.
Right? I just talked about how it was the first day because it was like the first day that nobody, like everybody didn't come on the same day. So it was
Mhm.
like, wow. But it didn't feel like a drop off. It just felt like, okay, now this is a part of the adapting
Mhm.
to this new
Mhm.
way of life, right? But I was like cocoon for like 10 days
Yep.
and I needed it. It was literally like somebody holding up my arms, and it
Yes.
was the body of faith, you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
just coming together and taking care of
Mhm.
me,
Yeah. Well,
you know?
it's similar to what you hear, like, when people bring a newborn home.
Yeah.
They're cocooned by a community who's bringing the meals, doing the house cleaning. A mother or a mother-in-law or a family member comes and stays for a bit.
Hmm.
And if you think about it, this is a weird comparison, but bringing home a newborn is a grief.
Listen, that is not weird for somebody who experienced, now I know, postpartum with all of mine. No, it's a
Mhm.
grief.
There is a grief
It
to
is a
bringing home a
grief.
newborn. Mhm.
Mm. And some people will hear us saying this and might even get offended. And that's a part of
Mhm.
what you're talking about.
Yep.
Us not wanting to sit with grief.
Yes. Even if you don't experience some of the really atrocious, terrible, difficult postpartum symptoms, even if you don't have any of those, the
Yeah.
grief of marriage, the grief of not having that one-on-one time with your spouse. Obviously, I'm talking about your first newborn, right? You've already had kids. This is your third or fourth. It's a little bit
I think
different,
you said, I don't know. You
but
know
there's
what?
a grief.
It's a grief there. And you know what? With each child, in my experience, like with you saying that, I, you know, I've never processed it like that, but I think it's a grief like that in the relationship with each baby because
Mm,
with each child brings an added responsibility,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
It's an added coordination that needs to happen. Like it's
mhm.
just stacking on top, and they're blessings. Don't get me wrong. We have four, so
Yes,
just putting
yes.
that out there for anybody who's like, what she's talking about. But
Mhm.
it's like, I remember being young and thinking, why didn't anybody ever talk about how much a relationship changes when a baby comes? And I was
Yep.
frustrated because I wasn't doing hard work back then. I did not have the language. I just knew that how I felt about my child's father at that time,
Mhm.
it was such a strain that I just felt like there is no way I'm the only, like, this is no way that this is the first time this has happened. Like, why isn't this a
Right.
dialogue that's going on? And now I'm processing that differently now because it's a grief and
Mhm.
most people don't want to deal with it.
Right.
And we're looking at it chronologically, like the baby's
Yeah.
going to get older as if that's why a lot of relationships fall apart when children are young. That's why I always say
Mhm.
that.
Mhm. Yes. Well, and that chronological frame, to the chronological way to frame grief, I think is also quite American.
Okay.
Because, again, in other cultures and in other parts of the world, it's very cyclical. We may have talked about this last time too, but looking at grief as cyclical instead of
Mm-hmm.
linear
Mm-hmm.
can just be a way more compassionate and way more realistic way to see it. So instead of me looking at grief of a loved one, for example, and say, well, they died 6 years ago, I should be over it by now. Well, no, they were a loved one. You
Mm-hmm.
will be grieving that likely for a long time, if not the rest of your life.
The- Yes.
And it's cyclical. There are seasons to it. Some seasons it will feel lighter. Some seasons you will maybe even have gratitude for how and when and where those things took place. Some seasons you'll have really beautiful reminders of the relationship and the
Mm.
connection you had. Other seasons, you may just be so angry, so devastated all over again on
Oh my
anniversaries
gosh.
of death those things
Yes.
happen and are common, and it's cyclical, it's repetitive. It doesn't mean that you are weak. It doesn't mean that you're not getting over it. It doesn't mean that there's something to be embarrassed by. It means you had an important relationship. You had love there, and that loss will always be a loss. It's never not going to be a loss. And the grief around it will likely just not ever be linear.
I mean, I feel like you just read me my life for the last 16, 17 months.
Yeah.
Really. Because I found myself the last couple weeks just because I'm just I'm back to dreaming. I heard a term in the grief training. It was like so much explanation of what I've been going through. It's like I'm finally getting from a place where I can, a lot of the dreams and goals I had with mommy, I can still say, we can do this. I can do this. They talked about
Mhm.
memories and like goals that you have that switch from we to I and
Yes.
embracing that.
Mhm.
And I found myself for a couple days like feeling gratitude almost. And it's like I almost felt guilty. And
Mm.
I was like just kind of processing. I was like, it's like as if I'm happy that she's not here, which is not the case. But I guess I
Right.
was in a space where I had some gratitude for just the experience, which
Yep.
to hear you explain this now is like this is all a part of the cycle,
Mhm.
and I heard and you touched on this. I feel like they'll say, well, how long will you grieve this? Well, how long will they be gone?
Right.
Never coming back. So I'm
Right.
always grieved this. Like, what are you?
Yep.
It may look different, but
Mhm.
what are you talking?
Mhm.
And that's what they talked about dealing with grief illiteracy, with people who
Yeah.
are just grief illiterate, say crazy things like you're not over that yet, and why would you be upset about that especially when you talk about grieving loss, expectations not being met,
Mhm.
relationship changes and, shifts in
Mhm.
dynamic. You talk about grieving, I think about empty nesters. There's a
Yes.
grief there, like
Yes.
changing a job, moving to a new city, selling a house,
Yes.
and people go through
Retirement. Yes.
retirement. Exactly.
Mhm.
People go through, and you talked about being a trauma specialist.
Mhm.
And I would say that, is grief a form of trauma, or is grief a response to a trauma? Like the situation happened and I'm grieving it. How how
Mhm.
how does how would you describe that?
Mhm. I would say, they're interlayered. They're
Okay.
they're
Okay.
interconnected for sure.
Mhm.
Um, Grief is likely the reaction to a trauma.
Okay. That's good.
If the person is acknowledging either one of those in the first place, right? We got to do that first.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, again, like those with areas that are unexpectedly pieces of grief. We talked about unmet expectations. A hospitalization, for example, can emit a type
Mm.
of grief. If I'm hospitalized for an accident or an injury or a chronic illness or a pregnancy, anything for a long period of time, and I'm hospitalized. I'm in that arena for a few weeks or a few months longer than expected. I'm missing out on my job. I'm missing out on my family. I'm missing out on my
Yes.
kids or my spouse. I'm missing out on the functioning of my body. I'm missing out on my home. Like you are missing out on a whole lot
Yes.
just from an experience of being hospitalized. Now, if that hospitalization is the consequence of a trauma, like a horrific car accident, anything like this, I mean, we're layering. Now we've got
Yeah.
a few
Yeah.
things going on. Um, so that's just one example. We can
Mhm.
have a situation like a hospitalization, which we don't always see as a type of grief, but there is grief connected. If that hospitalization was the result of a trauma, there's definitely grief connected. And now we've
Yeah.
got a lot of different things happening at one time.
Yes. And hearing you say this is making me think, a lot of people say Well, that's just life, and everybody goes through something, and there's no need to talk about it, or I just keep going. I just try to get better. How do you deal with that, or how do you support that person
Mhm.
and
That
encourage them? Because I
yeah.
I think that I don't. A lot of people don't realize how cathartic, how therapeutic, how healing it is to just process it. But, if you don't even
Mhm.
want to acknowledge it,
Mhm.
it's like you're traumatizing yourself even more. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Well, for the folks who say like that's just part of life and that just happens, that's everyone's going to experience something like that. They're right. Yes.
Correct.
You're right.
Yes, yes, you're
That's
right.
again part of that cyclical nature. But that's
Mhm,
life. You are
mhm,
right. We are all going to experience winter every single year. Winter also looks different every single year. Some years we have snow, other years we don't even need a winter coat. Some years it
yeah.
lasts longer than others, right? So we're going to have a winter every year,
Mm,
but it's going to look
mhm,
different each time.
mhm.
So what do we do with that? Let's talk about it. What does it mean for you? How does it affect you? You can say grief happens to everyone and that's just life, but why are we stopping there?
Mhm.
That's not a reason to halt the conversation. That's an opening to be curious and to learn how it impacts you and learn how you can navigate life because it is part of life. So let's find ways to cope with it and talk about it and just be supportive in those spaces.
That's so good. That's so good. And I want us to really, I'm asking you this because I want this show, these segments to really help our listeners, our heart tribe out there to be able to go and have conversations with loved ones
Mhm.
and understand that and this is something I want you to touch on with grief as well, because I want people to understand that just because the conversation may be difficult or uncomfortable, it doesn't
Mhm.
mean that it's wrong. It
Right.
doesn't mean that it
Absolutely.
doesn't need to take place. So can you kind of speak on that some? And I know I think that'll be kind of recurring with every topic we have, but just trying to
Mhm.
getting people to be okay with expressing and releasing, because I know
Mhm.
with grief that I've experienced in different ways, the most healing thing that I've done is just got it out, be it talking,
Mhm.
writing, prayer, meditation,
Mhm.
whatever. But, you know, leaning into that difficult thing.
Mhm. Yeah. It's gonna look different for everybody, but like we've said, we've got to acknowledge that it's grief first. And that might take a minute because grief, as we've said, is not always super socially acceptable, especially if it's not around death. People have
Mm,
a category to put grief around death. People expect you to grieve the death of a loved one. They expect you to take off work. They expect you to be a little more isolated for a while. But
mhm,
people are less socially accepting of a grief that happens around a miscarriage, for
mm.
example,
Ooh,
right?
yes,
People are less
yes.
socially accepting of grief that happens around a divorce. It's harder to maybe take off work and explain why during those circumstances. It's harder to maybe withdraw and not answer phone calls and operate a little differently in those experiences because it's grief. So the social acceptableness of it plays a role. And if we can move through that discomfort,
Mhm,
that can really help. Grief doesn't need to be socially acceptable
mm, mm. That's
because
a bar.
it's just yours. It's your grief. It doesn't
Mhm,
need to be accepted by
mhm,
others. It doesn't need to be socially acceptable.
mhm.
It is uncomfortable. And so you've got to find your ways to move through that and sit in that. And hopefully you do have a safe community to help you. Hopefully you do have one or two supportive people who can be there with you. But acknowledging that it's grief first is important. Knowing that it's not going to be it's not going to be comfortable is important.
Mhm.
And knowing that it's going to take as much time as it takes, as we've mentioned before.
This is this is so good because I I'm thinking about, like you said, talking about grief and like American Western ways of dealing with grief versus around the world, right? And I'm hearing you and I'm thinking of the person that's listening that's like, yeah, 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 but I want this feeling to go. Like, what do I need to do to get rid of this feeling?
Right.
Right. What do I need to do to get rid of this pain? And I feel like, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it's like going back to acknowledging that this is grief
Mhm.
and pretty much being willing to get in that to acknowledge the cycle that we're in. I love how you
Mhm.
put it like a season. Like in
Mhm.
like with the seasons and how even every winter isn't the same. Every summer isn't the same. Every fall
Right.
isn't the same and how we embrace that as we,
Mhm.
as we go. I also feel like this is also where it makes me think about artwork and what
Mhm.
motivates people to create
Mhm.
and the different ways we can express ourselves, right? We're talking about talk therapy, and I'm always advocating journaling and things like that.
Mhm.
But a lot of people release through artwork. And I think
Mhm.
about um, how one day I was so sad, I just literally sat down and I started like drawing a picture of my mother. I'm not
Mhm.
an artist. I would not. And
Right.
and it was such a pretty picture. Like I went and
Mhm.
was like, how do I draw a nose? And I'm online looking at it. Like I just
That's
got
amazing.
into it, right? But I feel like it was embodying what you just said. Like this is my grief that I'm dealing with. So I have to
Mhm.
find a way to adapt.
Mhm.
And I just want people to understand how important it is to find your way to adapt
Right.
in a healthy way.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I think that the desire you said, like, what do we tell people who just want that feeling to go away? It might not go away. It might not go away. Or even if it does go away, another type of grief is going to wash over you in 6 months or in a year or in 5 years, because grief doesn't just happen as an isolated event. You experience the divorce or experience the job loss or experience the death of a loved one. That's one life event that initiates grief. But there are dozens more that you
Yeah.
are going to experience. And so instead of being so averse and resistant and embarrassed by grief, we got to learn to navigate it and sit in it and move through it, because it's going to come again.
Mhm.
Right. And that's
Mhm.
not to be helpless and hopeless and doom and gloom about it. Grief is just an emotion. It
Yes.
is just an emotion. There is no moral value attached to grief. It
Mm.
is not good or bad. It is not right or wrong. It is an emotion, and it is part of the human experience. And so you are going to have it again.
Yes. That
So
is
let's
oh,
just get comfortable with it,
yeah.
call it what it is, know that it's going to happen many times over the course of our lives, and just learn from it. Ask it questions, be curious, know how it feels in your body, know what it feels like and looks like for you, know how to talk about it or write about it or draw about it. We just got to get more comfortable with it.
As you talk, there's a couple of things I thought about, and I don't want to miss one. It made me think about the Book of Lamentations.
Mhm.
That God would be so gracious to give us a whole book.
Mhm.
I feel like it's just such a reminder, and it's Old Testament. not New
Mhm.
Testament. So
Mhm.
before the grace, so however like people like to put it, right? But he
Right,
put
right.
it there when he was this fire and brimstone God, but we have Lamentations, right?
Mhm.
Like, and it's like, and so you saying that, like us getting it's like we have to get comfortable with lamenting, and it's
Yes.
in the word,
Yep.
right? And that's how you're able to cycle through. But I
Mhm.
truly believe you find out more of who you are when you do
Mhm.
this.
Yes. Yes. And now, I mean, it's 2025. There's no reason not to do this. There are support groups, there are online groups, there are Facebook groups, there are books, there are podcasts, there are lectures, there are trainings. We can learn and talk about grief a whole lot now.
Mhm.
There's no reason not to.
Yeah,
It's not taboo unless we make it.
yeah.
It's not socially unacceptable unless we make it socially unacceptable. So even if you don't have that ability in your immediate community to always talk about it or always process it or always explore what it looks like for you, Google a support group near you. Find a Facebook group, find an actual book, find a podcast. There's just so much out there. There's too much out there for us to not be learning about it and talking about it.
That's so good. That I mean, and I thank you for sharing that because that was a part of what, I wanted to ask you. How can people navigate grief in a healthy way and not alone, right?
Mhm.
Another thing is keeping in mind is grief is individual and collective.
Mhm,
Right?
mhm.
So some things we grieve individually, some things we grieve collectively, and a lot of
Yes.
them it's both, right? You
Mhm,
collectively grieve it, but each individual is processing it in their own
mhm,
unique way in that season, right?
mhm,
And another thing that I found interesting, a stat that they brought up in the grief training was that most people opt to get grief counseling is like it
mhm,
at year 5. That's
mhm,
the number one, like, time frame, like, in that way of speaking about grief chronologically, whereas, like,
mhm.
people get to 5 years and it's like, "I'm not over this, I need help," right?
Right.
And then the second highest statistic is year 1.
Yep.
But I found that so interesting that year
Mhm,
5
mhm,
was the number 1 year per se that
mhm,
most people opt to say, "I need grief counseling." And
mhm.
I would imagine they think like it's everything we've talked about so far. It is this isn't grief. I'm okay. I guess I was supposed to be down, but I should be over this by now.
Right, right. Yeah. And I think we just misdefine what it means to be over it. Like we should just get rid of that phrase. You might be familiar and other people are probably familiar with the five stages of grief. It's very common in literature and grief talk, but the last stage is acceptance.
Mhm.
And even when we talk about the stages of grief, those texts are typically very specific to say these are not linear stages and they're not chronological stages, and you will likely go back and forth between many of them. So even if you get to acceptance, you might hit denial again in 6 months. Even if you get to acceptance, you might be angry again next week. So you
Mm.
can accept the grief. That doesn't mean you're getting over anything. It means you're adding a new thing. It means you're adding a new thing to your life. You're adding a new reality.
Mm.
You will never get over the loss of your mother, but you
Mhm.
are adding a new reality of what it means to be on earth without her. You're
Yes.
adding something and it will always
Yes.
be there.
Yeah.
So it's a radical acceptance of this new reality given the loss that has happened.
Oh my gosh. Just for the sake of the conversation, can you please highlight those stages of grief? And remembering they're not
Mhm.
in chronological order,
Right.
but she's just giving us the stages.
Yes. So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is
Yes.
the founder of these stages. So and I'm not going to say them in order, but we've got
Mm-hmm.
denial, anger, bargaining, um, Ooh, denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance, and I can't remember what the
It's
4th.
one other one. It'll come to us, and if not,
See,
we'll
look at see, I
we'll
don't
we'll
even know
put it
them.
in the it's okay, we'll put them in the description, but you're living it and you're helping people through it, I bet you.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm,
no, that's perfect because that bargaining piece I found so interesting because that oh
mhm,
my gosh, I bargained. Oh man, I
mhm.
bargained a lot, like with God.
Yeah,
And at first I was like, it's just like it's like almost like a desperation.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And um so I'm just thankful that we have language for it. And that's one of the
Mhm,
reasons why, I want us to keep having these conversations because I want people to know that there are people out there like you. There
mhm,
are counselors out here that do understand, that do empathize, that aren't rushing you through your process, but are definitely helping you adapt and
mhm,
move, through the process in a healthy way.
mhm.
Right? Because like
Yep.
you just don't want to be stuck in it. And
Mhm,
you mentioned that people can Google support groups
mhm,
and just help. Could you maybe give some like definition to what that would look like for somebody that's like going to listen to this and say, "Okay, I'm going to go look up this." What are some things they might want to
mhm.
look out for or
Yeah. It all depends if, on social media, for example, if you just want to be in a group of other people who are also grieving a similar experience, you can find that pretty easily. If
okay,
you're looking for a sanctioned support group led by a professional, I'll always encourage folks to just make sure that professional has some kind of letters after their name. I don't care what the
okay.
letters are, but just some kind of
Gotcha.
letters after their name
Yes,
that
yes.
gives them the credibility to know, like, oh, this is a licensed professional in some capacity, whether it's a social worker, a counselor, a doctor, a nurse, anything. Just make sure they've got those credentials that you're looking for. If that's what you're interested in. If you just want to be in a group of people who've had those experiences, oh my word, they're just all over the place. And so I would just, use your own discretion when looking for those things.
Okay. And would it be safe to say to not give up if you don't like the first one you try?
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
everyone is not the same,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
give it I like to say finding a therapist, a counselor, a support group is a lot for me, like finding a good barber, a good hairstylist.
Mhm. Mhm.
They can get it done, but certain people just do it the way you like it, and then you
Right.
kind of gravitate to them, right?
Right.
And so that's what I think about when I think about getting that type of support and not
Mhm.
um getting bogged down and trying to figure it out. You should not be going through any type of grief alone. There are support groups for people who are divorced. There are support
Mhm.
groups for people who have lost a loved one. There are support
Mhm.
groups for people who have had miscarriages, right? With there's support
Mhm.
groups for just about any situation that you've been through, children with parents who are incarcerated. I went through that as an
Mhm.
adult child and it was challenging, but it was something that I had to grieve. And I even find myself now still grieving that
Yeah.
season of our lives and just what I thought about it versus even what I think about it now. So it's
Yeah.
just so like you said, there are so many layers to grief. And I just want us to be this is the hard work that I talk about. This is why we do the hard work because I believe that the more we process through this, we can experience our wholeness and we can really walk in the work God has called us to do. Like
Mhm.
Samantha could be so good at what she's doing because she's doing what God told her to do. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
she's and I feel like you can do that also even though you go through things, you grieve, you have grief in your
Mhm.
life, but you're still able to show up because you have tools in your toolbox that you're using to help you navigate this. And this is what we want for all of us, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
before we close out, do you have anything that you could say in closing just to help those that are listening that are grieving and maybe this person is like I'm hearing you, I'm taking this next step, I'm going to get some help, one, and then two, let the people know how they can connect with you.
Yeah. If you're interested in just navigating grief more, I mean, y'all trust your gut. That's what I tell people a lot. Trust your gut, trust your inner circle. You know who those people are.
Mm,
You know who your people are. So
mhm.
go to your people first. Your best friend, your mom, your spouse, your college roommate, whoever it is. Go to your people. You know who your people are. If you do that, or if you can't do that for any reason and you want to go further, then absolutely get on get on the internet, Google therapists, Google support groups, Google books. There's so many things out there. I hate that I can't give a specific example because there literally are just so many. So there's so many. You can
Yeah.
find them.
We'll link
Um,
some. I'll look something.
mhm,
I'll get with
mhm.
you, and when we put this out,
Yeah.
I'll put some things in the description, maybe a
Mhm.
link, and we'll also link how they can connect with you.
Yeah. And then just I know this is a few steps, but listen to your body is a thing
Mhm.
that we just don't do a whole lot. And so listening to your body means cry when you want to cry, scream when you want to scream, throw something when you want to throw something in a safe way, punch your pillow, whatever there's energy in your body when you are grieving. Let that energy do what it needs to do, even if it's just 10 jumping jacks in your bedroom. If it's a walk around the block before bed, do something with that energy. If it's drawing or painting, even though you've never drawn before, if it's dancing, whatever it is, listen to your body and just let it do what it needs to do. If it needs to stay in bed an extra hour, stay in bed an extra hour. Listen to your body.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. That is so good. Now, please let us know how we can connect with you.
Yes, the easiest way is just my website, which is my full name.com. So SamanthaAgalees.com. You'll find me there. You can email me there. You can check out other resources there. But that's the best way to get in touch with me.
Awesome, awesome sauce. Well, I just thank you for this time together. Um, I thank you for this not being your last time. I thank you for coming back. I thank you for helping us because this was very, very helpful.
Mhm,
I appreciated the conversation as a participant, but also just listening,
mhm,
because it is so real. And we do grieve a lot of things in life. And me dealing with my mother's transition has really helped me to see the other things that I've probably been grieving and didn't even realize.
mhm,
And I appreciate that. I
mhm,
do because I feel, honestly, I feel more whole. I feel
mhm.
more real. I feel
Yeah.
more authentic. I feel like I like who I am because
Mhm.
I don't have to feel, I'm listening to my body. I don't have to be angry or upset. I could just be sad.
Yes.
If
Mhm,
people could just sit with that sadness, it'll change your life. Just cry.
mhm,
You have
mhm.
tear ducts for a reason. God
Yep.
knew we needed to relieve the stress. And maybe the next time we get on, we'll talk more in depth about that. Who knows? But just
Mhm,
remember, it's real. You have help. You have support. We will continue to have these healing conversations, and we will definitely bring Samantha back. She is our licensed professional counselor here in our Heart Tribe, and I'm so thankful to have her. So you will be able to get her information in the description. Samantha, thank you so much for taking this time and being here with
yes.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I thank you all for being here with us on the Heartline. And we will be back for our next show. Remember, when you heal your heart, you transform your life. Talk to you next time.